Welcome to the Breaking News Bears podcast. I'm your host, Chris Capone, joined alongside my co-host once again, Evan Davis, and the World Series has not disappointed so far. Two games in and both games have been electric, coming down to the last out with the bases loaded in each game. In game one, Freddie Freeman hit the biggest home run of his storied career with a walk-off grand slam off of Nestor Cortez. And in game two, Alex Vesia got Jose Trevino to fly out with the bases loaded in the ninth for the Yankees. All this leading to a 2-0 lead to the Dodgers, heading to New York for games three, four, and five. There are many things to discuss about this World Series, such as Aaron Judge's struggles, Ohtani's injury, and much more. So, Evan, I'll ask you, how did you feel about game one?
Oh my God. I mean, what a game that was. You talk about the Dodgers coming back down twice on, or coming back on down two separate occasions. Mookie Betts with the sac fly to bring home Ohtani after the double that turned into a triple, or that got Ohtani to third on the error. And then you see what happens when you intentionally walk a Dodger. It usually doesn't bode well for your squad, but I just want people to understand how ridiculous Freddie Freeman is with the bases loaded against left-handed pitching the last two seasons. He has four grand slams in like nine at bats against left-handed pitching, and he also has now 24 RBIs. It's just I Yankee fans, rightfully so, were like, where was Tim Hill? Because why was Nestor Cortez, in that spot? It didn't make sense. And also for Cortez, like if you look at the box as to where Freeman likes to hit fastballs against lefties, I mean, Cortez could not have put it in a better spot for Freddie Freeman. And I just I don't get why. Like obviously you get Ohtani out with the fastball, Cortez does. Ohtani missed that pitch, but Freddie Freeman was obviously watching that at bat, and to go back on a fastball and get greedy, I think was a horrible call by Austin Wells, and sure enough, they paid for it.
Yeah, just watching that whole series or that whole sequence where he gets Ohtani to fly out, Verdugo goes in crashing into the stands pretty much, moves the runner ahead, and that leads
So
Betts to walk with the bases loaded or walk the bases loaded, setting up Freddie.
yeah, I
Uh,
mean you could continue. One say I wanted to correct myself. Freddie Freeman versus lefties with the bases loaded the last two seasons is 9 of 14 with four home runs, 25 RBIs, and a 643 batting average. You can
yeah,
continue.
yeah, he's been insane. Uh, but yeah, you just look at it, and I was watching it and seeing just you're right. Ohtani missed that pitch, that fastball, and then Nestor thought he could double up on it. Where hitters are smart and they see at bats before they even happen. Like he's watching on the top step of the dugout before he goes into the batter's box before or not the batter, yeah, before he goes into the on deck circle. He's watching that from the top step of the dugout and saying, okay, he's leaving it there. If he's leaving it there for Ohtani, it's probably a high chance he's leaving it there for me. And just another, like you said, it was a bad decision by Aaron Boone. I know Nestor Cortez has been big for you all year, but he hasn't pitched in 37 days. You have Tim Hill available. Even Tim Mesa is available, like at that point. Like
Is he on the roster? I don't even know.
he should be on the roster instead of Nestor Cortez at this point. Like, I don't think bringing somebody in from an injury for where they almost missed 40 days of pitching and then throwing him into the World Series, and it's such a high leverage situation, I don't think makes sense. I know he's a lefty, but yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, like to your point. Oh, you know what? Tim Mesa is on the roster, so that would have actually been
Lefty.
another lefty you could have thrown. I saw yesterday on MLB Network, Mark DeRosa, who I think is one of the best analysts out there, was doing a split of uh, you know, Nestor Cortez first at bats against lefties versus Tim Hill's first at bat against lefties. And the discrepancy is huge where Nestor Cortez opponents are batting under 100 versus Cortez on that first plate appearance, whereas with Tim Hill, it's about 273. So I'm sure Aaron Boone and his staff was looking at that saying, hey, look, this is why we want to go with Cortez. this is why I think analytics sometimes gets in the way too much of baseball, where, I just don't see why you would still think Cortez is a good option. And then for Aaron Boone to come out in the press conference and say, oh, yeah, well, Cortez has looked good in his throwing simulations. It's like, that's not the bases loaded in the World Series. Like, that's just casually throwing at, 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, like I really don't get that situation to say, well, bullpen he's looked good. Brother hasn't pitched since September 19th. It's been over a month.
Mhm.
Like it's been an insane amount of time. He's been out with an injury. It's not like he was just left off the roster like Marcus Stroman was, uh, where he's still pitching every day since then, pretty much. But no, this is World Series, bottom of the 10th, bases loaded. Or the bases weren't loaded when he came out. It was just to face Ohtani at first. But still, like there's no way this is the decision that goes into it where, yeah, bring in the guy who hasn't pitched in over a month.
Well, yeah, and now they put him in a position to fail, and you just wonder how that affects with his mentals going down the rest of the series because now the Yankees are down 2-0, and if they win that game, it's a whole different conversation. But you look at the starting pitching in that game and what Derek Jeter and Rodriguez and all those guys said on the Fox panel, as well as just MLB analysts in general, was just you had to win the Garrett Cole starts. Like you had to win those. And to his credit, he did a phenomenal job in game one. 6 innings, was responsible for Teoscar Hernandez. Obviously, he didn't come around to score. 1 earned run, 4 hits allowed, 4 strikeouts. You could make an argument that he shouldn't have even allowed a run if Juan Soto actually put a good run on that ball instead of just running straight to it, at least trying to cut it off on an angle. But the caveat to get needing to win the Carrick Hole game is that you kind of need the Dodgers starters to lay an egg, and Jack Flaherty did not lay an egg. He made one mistake pitch on a breaking ball inside to Stanton that is still probably landing just on how high that ball went. But Flaherty's knuckle curve was the huge difference, and the Yankees couldn't hit it. And I don't know if we want to bring this up, but the home plate umpire in game one was just absolutely atrocious.
Yeah, his strike zone was all over the place. We also talk about it where the Dodgers need base. You talk about how the Yankees needed to win the Garrett Cole start. The Dodgers needed to win basically both of the games with Flaherty and Yamamoto starting
Mhm.
because now you're going into New York and you have Walker Buehler lined up for game three and possibly a bullpen game lined up for game four. Those could both potentially be losses. I know Walker Buehler's been a lot better in the postseason so far, but his stuff still is iffy. It's not as solid and not as consistent as Flaherty and Yamamoto's have been. And then obviously the bullpen games have worked so far for the Dodgers, but we talked about it before where you can't really always rely on that. It's not always a 100% guaranteed thing to work. Um, I know the Dodgers bullpen is really, really good. Rivals even the Guardians bullpen and the Padres bullpen at this point, but like there's only so much you can do, especially with even somebody like Evan Phillips being left out the roster, but Brusdar Graterol and Alex Vesia coming back. It's still a big thing for the Dodgers that they needed to win both of those games because you're uh not as certain with a Walker Buehler start or a bullpen game.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I just saw MLB posting this that teams up 2-0 in the last two New York LA World Series meetings have eventually lost the series. Now, look, that was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So what was it also that whoever won the whoever beats the Brewers goes to the World Series that ended up getting canned when the Mets lost to the Dodgers. And unless Alex Rodriguez, Derek Jeter, and Mariano Rivera are coming out for the Yankees, or if I see Reggie Jackson all of a sudden pull up uh tomorrow night, I really don't care about these statistics. But yeah, you know what, to your point about Walker Buehler, like he's looked really good since that second inning blunder. And you can make an argument that he's looked good this entire postseason because if it wasn't for defensive miscues and just the luck of the Padres getting these infield hits where the Dodgers were playing the shift and then they just found that one hole, outside of that unlucky second inning, Bueller's looked really good. You know, obviously he got out of that bases loaded jam against the Mets. The six strikeouts in 4 innings. The only thing that concerns me with Bueller is that the swing and miss stuff just still isn't there yet. Like he doesn't have that one wipeout pitch. That could also just be that the Mets did a great job of fouling off pitches, which they did do. Um, but if that, what is really going to be telling with Walker Bueller, especially in Game 3, is that curveball and slider sweeper working? Because if that's working, the fastball becomes unhittable.
Yeah, and we've seen it before in the other starts that Bueller has had. He has had some of his strikeout stuff that he didn't have in the regular season. And that's really important for him to get batters out. Like uh the most recent start against the Mets where he had 6 strikeouts in 4 innings. Like that was a really big start for him. But then obviously we talk about the Padres start where he had no strikeouts in 5 innings and gave up the all the hits and runs there, the 6 runs there. But that it's such a big start for the Dodgers tomorrow night, having uh Walker Buehler go up. Who's pitching for the Dodgers? Is it what's it called? Clark
You mean
Schmidt
the Yankees?
or for the Yankees?
Yeah,
Yeah, is it Clark Schmidt
yeah.
tomorrow?
It's going to be Clark Schmidt tomorrow, but yeah, it's not like Clark Schmidt didn't have his best stuff against Cleveland, but who did have his good stuff was Yoshi, who the Yankees
Yeah,
didn't want to pay.
yeah. What an outing for him yesterday. What a perfect outing, and he only left one mistake pitch the whole night pretty much, and it was that one that Juan Soto sent to Jupiter. But it was such an important outing for him. Uh, 6 in the third innings, only 1 run. Like I said, only 1 hit, and it was that one mistake. Like, what a great outing for Yamamoto in game 2 last night.
Yeah, and you could even see like the home run that he gave up to Soto. You look at Will Smith's glove was on the outer, like was meant for a pitch outside, and Yamamoto missed it and threw it inside. And that's the one thing with Soto is like you can't throw the inside fastball because he could just turn on a pitch, and that's exactly, what he did. But Yamamoto looked really good. The 4 strikeouts, I think he retired 11 in a row after giving up the Soto home run. And that's really just what won the Dodgers the game. And I just, for someone that's 26 years old, you look at like obviously his first postseason start against the Padres, it wasn't pretty. Obviously giving up the 5 runs in what was it, 3 innings, and the Padres just continue to have his number. But you look at since uh that game and that since that first postseason start, 15 and 2/3 innings pitched, 3 earned runs, 7 hits, 4 walks, 14 strikeouts. That's what you need out of a $325 million pitcher.
Yeah, someone who's willing to go out there and, get batters out. Like you said, the 15 and 2/3 inning, the 3 earned runs, a 1.72 ERA in the last 3 postseason starts against really good teams where you have the Padres, the Mets, and now the Yankees. Like three really important situations in game 5 and game 4, and really game 2 at this point in the World Series, where it's such an important game, like I said. But yeah, like I want to get your thoughts on after the Shohei Ohtani got picked off, or not picked off, got caught stealing and his injury. What was going through your mind when you saw he's down on the ground, and even the base cam or the base mic picked up him speaking in Japanese saying, "Did you feel your shoulder pop?" And then he said, "Yeah, I think I felt it pop." Like obviously we don't speak Japanese, and I had to wait for somebody on Twitter to translate it. But what was going through your mind, like that whole situation there?
Well, what was going through my mind, and look, I'm not a doctor, clearly, but what was going through my mind was that he popped his shoulder. Like that was my first initial thought was that his shoulder popped because he's he's a big dude. Like he came down on that left shoulder with so much force, and you could tell like instantly that his shoulder was popped. And the reason why you could tell is that the way that they're holding his arm as he's walking off the field, like that tells me that it was dislocated, pop shoulder, whatever the case may be. The report coming after was that it was a subluxation. I don't know how the heck you pronounce it, but it basically in layman's terms means that it's a partial it's a partial dislocation. I just think the one positive sign is the fact that the arm movement was good and the arm strength was good, because if it was fully dislocated, and obviously then they would have diagnosed it as that, like that arm is it's shot. Like you can't move that thing whatsoever. The fact that he, left with the team, no sling, like no brace or anything on that arm, tells me that with treatment and medication, uh, he can be okay. And I mean, let's be honest here, a 70% Shohei Ohtani is still better than, a good chunk of the league. But initially, what I thought was pop shoulder or dislocated just because of how hard he came down while sliding. Uh, but I think a part of me still thinks he plays game three, because it's not like he's in the field, like he doesn't need to worry about throwing. And his um it's also
His
his
left
left
shoulder.
arm. It's his left
Yeah.
shoulder. So it's not his power swing. Like you need the right arm to be intact.
Yeah. And that was a really important thing too, being his off arm pretty much. Where like thank God he's not a right-handed hitter where
Hmm.
that would be a big issue where that's your stroke arm like pretty much to get out of the power stroke. But like we said, with Otani, such a lucky moment for him not to have actually fully dislocated it, even though I'm sure the pain in that moment felt like he probably did because he said, I felt a pop like it hurts. Um, but what a huge relief to not have
Hmm.
any like serious injury there because it would just be bad for the sport having Otani go down, especially in the biggest moment in the World Series. But you talk about that game one double that got turned into a that advanced him to third on the air. That's probably the biggest part of the game where if Gleyber Torres fields that ball perfectly, the Dodgers probably lose that game still because if Otani doesn't move to third, that Mookie Betts sac fly doesn't uh score him, and the Dodgers didn't do anything the rest of that inning. What an important situation that was for Otani just to read that or for Gleyber not to field that properly and Otani being able to move to third.
Well, yeah, well, first of all, obviously big for the Dodgers that, it's not dislocated, that or that it's not torn. Like no, because the one thing I was saying to my dad was like, for God's sakes, like please don't have a ligament be damaged, because then that means he's done for, the rest of the postseason, obviously, but then it also just delays his rehab still from pitching. I we talked about, I believe we talked about at the beginning of the series, before it started, just the base running errors and just errors in general by the Yankees. They were able to get away with it against the Guardians because the Guardians return the favor at times, but you're not going to get away with it against the Dodgers. And the Gleyber Torres play, like, I mean, I'm happy from as a Dodgers fan, but like, what are you doing? Like, why isn't your body in front of that baseball? And credit to the Dodgers dugout for telling Ohtani, like, you got to run to third, like, put on the Jets. Does Mookie Betts still drive him in if Ohtani's on second? We'll leave that up for debate, because your mindset in that at bat changes where Mookie Betts was just trying to get anything in the air and in the outfield because of the runner on third. He might take a different approach to the plate if Ohtani's on second. He might have laid off that changeup from Luke Weaver that he eventually got to Judge, but you never know. Uh, but yeah, the miscues from the Yankees and just not capitalizing. They're 2 for 14 with runners in scoring position as well, in these two games, and just the miscues and not capitalizing. We're talking about two swings and maybe it's 2-0 Yankees.
Yeah, like we talk about also 2-0 Yankees. Another big factor for that is Aaron Judge has been
Oh,
atrocious so far in the World Series. Yesterday, 0 for
mhm.
4 with three strikeouts, and even game one, three strikeouts as well. He's just lost at the plate right now. And we talk about it where the Dodgers walked Juan Soto to get to Aaron Judge because Aaron Judge at this point, he's not scaring anybody anymore. And it's it's kind of odd to see where Giancarlo is more feared in that lineup. And I talked about it before. We're saying it's kind of like they switched like Space Jam or Thunderstruck, where
Mhm,
they've switched abilities where Giancarlo is that guy now where it's like we don't want to pitch to him. And
mhm,
obviously Juan Soto is still really goddamn good, where he's good at hitting anything pretty much, and he
mhm,
always takes his walks. But Judge right now is just I don't know if it's nerves. I don't know if it's just he's even blocking Yankees fans on Twitter, where a lot
mhm.
of Yankees fans are just like, Judge, you got to step it up, man. They're like, how did I get blocked by Aaron Judge? I didn't even say something that bad. Like, there's something going on mentally with Aaron Judge right now, and it's really affecting his game.
Yeah, I think what is really telling, and Alex Rodriguez and Derek Jeter brought it up on the broadcast, but you could also just see it during, or they brought it up in the post game, but you could see it during the game. I think it was Judge's first at bat, or no, I'm sorry, it was that last at bat that he had against Yamamoto when he struck out to end the sixth. Was it to end the sixth inning? Yeah, he's up 2-0 in the count, and Yamamoto just he has to throw a strike just because you don't want to go down 3-0 to Judge because then you're screwed. But he throws a fastball right down the middle, and Judge doesn't even move. Like, that's what's crazy to me is that it's Aaron Judge. He gets a meatball down the middle of the plate. It wasn't even that high velocity. Yamamoto's fastball tick was definitely down from 98 in the first to 94 in the sixth, which isn't like cause for concern. But a fastball right down the middle that Judge doesn't even look at. Like, that's what's crazy to me. Like, it's Aaron freaking Judge. And obviously, 1 for 9 this postseason, 5 straight games with multi strikeouts. But Judge has been like this the entire postseason. He's batting 150 on the year. And at what point does Aaron Boone, move him down in the lineup? Like, obviously, it's Aaron freaking Judge. And I don't want to like compare the two together, but Will Smith had been struggling at the plate immensely, and he was batting in like that five spot. They move him down to the eight hole, and now he's hitting home runs, he's hitting doubles, he's doing a lot better in that role. I'm not saying the Yankees are going to move Judge to eighth, but why not move him to fifth?
Yeah, and I think that's a real cause for concern for Aaron Boone. I think Giancarlo has to move up, and I think Jazz Chisholm's given them really important hits. They have to do something to this lineup where you gotta either start a fire under Aaron Judge and say you're hitting fifth today, or you're hitting like I don't even think hitting cleanup would do that much of a difference for Judge's mental at this point because Giancarlo has been such a hot bat. Um, but they just need to find a new way to get something going with Aaron Judge. And I know as a Dodgers fan, you don't want that, but it's just been really cause for concern for Aaron Boone. Like we talk about it, this guy hits like 60 home runs in the regular season, but he falls apart when it comes to the most important part of the season, where against the Guardians, he wasn't really doing that much. He had what, like one or two home runs in that series, but the
Hmm.
rest of the series, he wasn't really hitting for anything and striking out a lot. And
Hmm.
he's continuing this stretch of just bad play going into the World Series now.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about bad play going into the World Series. You look at the numbers, he's two for his last 17, and that's including 10 strikeouts. Like, this is an Aaron Judge that is now with a 280 on base percentage. And obviously, I mean, you hit the nail on the coffin. As a Dodgers fan, you don't want Aaron Judge to get hot because then it really makes that 2-3-4 or 1-2-3-4 for that matter, because Torres is really good. It makes that 1-2-3-4 that much more lethal. But I think the problem with the Yankees is it's obviously Aaron Judge, but it's the rest of their lineup. I mean, you look at game two, Juan Soto goes 2 for 4 with a home run. The rest of the lineup goes 2 of 24. Like, that's not going to win you a game. And, even if Ohtani misses game three, the depth of the Dodgers lineup, it's hard to get 27 outs against them right now. Just Tommy Edman, does anybody realize what Tommy Edman's hitting in the postseason this year? It is unfreaking believable. Chris, you want to take a guess as to what Tommy Edman's batting average is in the postseason?
I believe it's close to 400 at this point. I think it's like 360.
Yeah, he's hitting
Yeah.
365. And he's tied for the lead on the team with 13 RBIs. Him and Mookie Betts both have 13, but he has a 935 OPS and he's hitting in the nine spot. Or I mean, yesterday because of the lefty, he hit in the five hole, I believe. Yeah,
Yeah.
because Freeman hit fourth, hits in the five spot, hits another home run. I mean, Tommy tanks against left-handed pitching. I said it to my buddy two days ago after game one. I said Edmund rakes against lefties. I should have put money on him to hit a home run because that's all he does against lefties. But you look at Teoscar, Mookie's finally coming alive again in the postseason. Freeman, Muncy hasn't looked pretty against lefties, but you still have both the Hernandez brothers as well. Eh, That's the difference, is what's happening is that the Yankees, if they don't get hits from the top four, like Volpe with a horrible at bat yesterday, Wells has really done nothing for them, and Trevino just missed a fastball high and inside.
Yeah, and a 935 OPS for Tommy Edman right now. And
Tommy takes.
like it's been he has as many home runs in the postseason as Aaron Judge. And that's something insane to see where it's like the struggles for Aaron Judge so far have been so like it's not even odd at this point because we just know he's just not a postseason performer at this point. Like for his career, uh, or at least in the last two postseasons, his OPS total 554. Like the
Hmm.
2022 and 2024 postseason OPS combined, a 554 OPS, a 145 batting average.
Mm.
Like this is trash. Like that's awful. It's
He
just
didn't
saying
even
it how it is.
sugarcoat it.
Basically, since even if we could go back to 2020, his OPS since the 2020 postseason started, a 582 OPS, a 146 batting average. He's just not a postseason performer.
No, I mean, yeah, to your point, he's horrible in the postseason. His postseason career, he's batting 199 with a 436 slug, which you're just not used to seeing. A 740 OPS is kind of average. And you almost feel like this number is inflated from, that 2018 year when what the Yankees go to they went to or no, I'm sorry, that was the just the series where Aaron Judge went ridiculous batting 421 because outside of that, like it's just been downhill sledding for him. And you look at these last two postseasons, he's 11 for 76. Like 11 for 76. You don't see that with Aaron Judge. And the problem is that four of those 11 hits are home runs. I think that's what's really the issue is like he's either hitting home runs or he's not hitting at all.
Yeah, he has one double in the last two postseasons. One double in the last two postseasons for somebody who's known for getting extra base hits. And it's not always just home runs. Like Jared Judge hits a lot of doubles. He gets a lot
Yeah.
of extra base hits the other way.
Hmm.
It's it's just he's just not a postseason guy. He's not that guy, pal, in the postseason.
Well,
Um,
so now the series shifts to New York for three, four, and five, and everyone's saying, well, the short porch is going to help Aaron Judge. Look, it might, but I gotta see it first. I gotta see Aaron Judge actually come alive in this postseason because the irony is that both of his home runs happened in Cleveland.
no, his game two home run was in New York. He had one home run in New York.
Oh, my bad, my bad. Yes, you're right. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. He had the dagger home run, and then he had the one in Cleveland. I apologize. Yeah, you're right. My bad.
but still, in four games in New York so far, he has three hits. No, two
Hmm.
hits. He has two hits across four games in New York.
Hmm.
It's just he hasn't been good. It's not even like New York is doing that much for him, where it's like home field, get back into the swing of things. He
Hmm.
hasn't really been doing anything at home. And granted, most of the postseason he's been on the road so far. He's only, like
Hmm.
I said, he's only had four games at home. But even if we go back to other postseasons, against in 2022 in the postseason, he only had one home run at home in the entire postseason. Uh, went 0 for in the last two games against Houston in
Hmm.
2022. Uh, but but yeah, like he's just been struggling. And the Yankees lineup, where would the Yankees be if they did not have Juan Soto at this point? And it makes me think where it's like, I don't think they get past Cleveland if Juan Soto isn't on that team. If it's just Giancarlo doing anything for that Yankees lineup, I don't know if the Yankees even get past the Guardians,
Yeah,
where Juan Soto was huge that whole series.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Soto's doing his job. He's batting 350 this postseason, which is just absurd as well. But with an 1160 OPS and a slug of 700, he is disgusting. But we knew that. Like, that's why Juan Soto is going to most likely get, anywhere between, I would say, 500 to 550 million dollars, because in the postseason he's a 285 hitter with a 930 OPS. Like, it's not some fluke that Juan Soto is doing well this postseason. He's still walking more than he strikes out this postseason. That's something we've been used to seeing from him. And I mean, you look at it, 4 home runs, but only 9 RBIs because no one's on base for him. He has 14 hits this postseason and six of them for extra bases.
Yeah, he's been insane, and he's exactly what the Yankees were trading for, where they needed him
Hmm.
in these big moments, and Giancarlo's been big as well. But your big dog, your captain, he's the captain of the Yankees franchise, and he's shrinking in when it matters most. Uh, but yeah, going to game three, we have Walker Buehler versus Clark Schmidt. What's sure to be, I would at least hope for another really close game. I don't know if you would hope for that. Just seeing how, like, how stressed were you in game two? Like that Giancarlo hits off of the bag and Soto scores. Like, what were you thinking?
Well, at first, my initial thought was, dang, Stanton got lucky that it hit the base. But then I was thinking, dang, the Dodgers got lucky that it hit the base because that could have been a double down the line. And I'm still surprised that Stanton didn't even make it to second regardless because the ball just kept taking a weird bounce. You would figure Stanton would still be on second. But I didn't understand why the Dodgers went back to Trinan after he just threw an inning and a third in game one, because you could tell he was tired. The sweeper just was a little erratic. It didn't break like it used to. I thought it was an interesting decision. I thought it was interesting when he pitched to Jazz and Rizzo as well. I would have liked to see Vesia in that moment because lefty on lefty, we know how Vesia and Bonda are in those situations. Obviously, you burned Bonda earlier in the game. But no, the stress levels were high. Honestly, they weren't as high with Anthony Volpe at the plate just because I knew he's going to chase at the off speed. And I mean, that strike three that he swung at was just a disgusting pitch to swing at. Like, he was so late on that, but you could tell, like, he didn't start actually thinking about swinging until the ball was like 2 feet away from him. And then he was like, crap, I got to swing. Um, when Trevino came in, I was kind of getting concerned just because I know Vesia splits against righties and lefties. Uh, and I know Trevino's had his clutch moments in October, so the heart rate was definitely getting up there. But it's Alex Vesia. He's been phenomenal this entire year. And a 93-mile-an-hour fastball just looks like 97, 98 the way that it moves.
Yeah, and what a big out for them because I thought off the bat, I thought it was going to be like a double in the gap. It
Oh, I no.
it it came off the way it came off. I thought he hit something, but he just got under and skied it up pretty much where it just lazily flew into the center fielder's hand.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as he hit it off the bat, I knew it was going to be a fly ball. Like, I knew it was going to be a fly out because he didn't get enough on it for it to
Yeah.
really carry. Like, and even the launch angle I looked at, it was like 35 degrees, which, I mean, unless you hit the ball 110 or like 107, maybe, like, that ball is just not leaving the yard. Uh, but credit to Edmund, right place, and gets the out. But I mean, you talk about, like, the fact that it could be 2-0 Yankees is what still terrifies me. It's like, yeah, the Dodgers are 2 wins away from a World Series. The Yankees, game two was must win for the Yankees. It was just unfortunate that they had lost game one because the Dodgers just do a phenomenal job against left-handed pitching. So you kind of knew you had to win game one because you knew game two was already going to be an uphill climb. If the Yankees don't win game three, I still say Dodgers I would still say Dodgers in six, and like that was my pre-series prediction. But my only thinking is like if they don't like if they win, I almost think it's better for them to win game three, and if they lose game four, then whatever. But if they lose game three, I don't see how this series comes back to LA. And I could be wrong. I could eat my, eat my own hand, whatever it is, like be completely wrong. But momentum is real, and Jazz and all those guys are saying, yeah, the vibes are still high. No, they're not. Tell the media that. You can't tell me they are. You had one hit going into the ninth inning, and although they got a rally going, it doesn't matter because the game ended. Like you're not carrying that onto the plane and into the next game.
Yeah, and we talk about it. The vibes are high. I don't think they're high for Aaron Judge blocking his own fan base on Twitter for just saying, for wanting their. I don't get how you can be that sensitive where, okay, I want my star player. Like, I'm a fan of my favorite team, and my
Hmm.
star player has basically played terribly the last three postseasons. The
Hmm.
last three postseason runs, we've basically lost because our captain, our
Hmm.
best player, our MVP, hasn't shown up in the biggest moments. Scrolling through Twitter and blocking Yankees fans is kind of disgusting for Aaron Judge, where we look at other sports and we see like LeBron going zero dark 30 mode,
Hmm.
where he just completely turns off social media. I think Aaron Judge needs to do the same thing at this point because he's getting in his own head, and that's what's really putting the nail in the coffin for the Yankees, where the Dodgers are walking Juan Soto to get to Aaron Judge.
Hmm. And yeah, I mean, you look at it. All right, I just saw this tweet from Roy Oswalt saying, despite the 2-0 series lead, I still believe this lack of starting pitching will come back to haunt the Dodgers. Okay, whatever, Roy. You're an Astro. You cheat.
Yeah.
But anyway, like you look at it, it was similar with Class A, how like after, he blew that game, he's going on Instagram and like flashing all of his rings and all that. It's like, dude, we know you're an elite reliever in the regular season, mind you, but you got to get off Instagram. And I mean, look, my bias might be showing here with the Dodgers, but I love the vibes that I'm seeing right now from this team where it's like, yeah, they won, but you even hear like Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and Max Muncy and Miguel Rojas post game being like, yeah, it's cool that we won, but it doesn't matter. Like, who cares if you win the second game? Like, you got to win four. It's first to four, not first to two. So I love how they're like, obviously it's great. They took care of home field, won the first two games, but now you got to go back to New York. And the one positive for the Dodgers is they've already dealt with a New York crowd before. So they know
Yeah.
what it's like. And I know I've been ranting, but there was one interesting thing, and I wanted to get your opinion on this. Someone had brought up the fact that the Dodgers have already played on the East Coast prior to this World Series actually helps them more because they're now used to like the time change. Like they were just in New York last week. Like they know that now they're adjusted to the time difference.
Yeah, I think that's another really big part for them. And you talk about also being in New York is another big thing where they've already dealt with a crowd. And I think Mets fans are more loud and vibrant than Yankees fans. I think Yankees fans might be slightly more corporate than Mets fans at this point, just because I think, they had the Rizzler at the Mets games, and
Grimace.
he he's a riot. But I think that's a really big thing for the Dodgers to one have already been in New York, have already played on the East Coast. I mean, they were going to play somebody on the East Coast no matter what, Mets or Phillies, and both of them have really crazy fan bases. So I think and they've already played the Padres too. Like the Dodgers have played some of the most threatening and loud and, vibrant fan bases in both of their postseason series so far, where the Padres and the Mets. I think the Yankees fans aren't going to, really change them as much.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just yeah, once I hear that stupid Yankees roll call, uh, I'm gonna lose my freaking mind. However, like no disrespect to that guy who handles it, but like you're 60 years old or something, dude. Like get a life. Like, do something else with your life. Like, I just think that Yankees roll call is the stupidest thing in baseball. I get like the tradition and all that, but it's like that guy thinks he's greater than God, the way that he like wants to command an entire section to basically tell them when to do everything. It's like, my God, like, that's only child syndrome right there.
Yeah, I always see funny tweets about it where it's like, I'm gonna lie, this is awesome. Where
Yeah.
and it shows a video of the Yankees roll call. I just think that's
It's
super funny.
I'm glad someone else agrees with me. Like, I'm glad Twitter agrees with me because I just think like it's the dumbest thing in the world. And like, I don't get what it does, but one thing I am excited for is to see Teoscar Hernandez back in New York because the last time these two teams played in New York, Teoscar Hernandez had 2 home runs and like 6 RBIs. And in those 3 games, he hit the dagger grand slam. So I'm excited to see him again. I just, I, I think and I hope Ohtani plays. That would be my guesstimation. Um, but I also just think some of these like analysts were kind of overreacting to the situation because they just don't know the actual they didn't know the medical diagnosis at the time. Like doctors are saying that he can either miss like he might miss 1 game, he might not even need to miss a game. I just think what's really telling is that he went on the plane with the team. That's what I think is the most important, and the fact that he wasn't in a cast or anything like that, and that he could also move that arm.
Yeah, and we today being an off day, Sunday, is huge for them where he gets
Mhm.
to, really rest the day, get some treatment on it, and see how he's feeling. He even has to all day tomorrow pretty much to think about it, where it's a Monday 8 o'clock game in New York, where maybe he's not feeling good in the morning, but it could ramp up during the day where he starts to feel better with more treatment on Monday. Uh, and maybe it's a point where maybe he doesn't start the game, but he could still come in and pinch hit later.
Oh,
Uh,
oh, my poor guy.
but I think Otani's going to be fine. I think, like you said, he didn't have to have any casts or anything on his shoulder, any bandages or anything, like nothing wrapped up. I think that's a really big important part for that. I think it's just going to be a little strain. It might be a little sore, but like you said earlier in the pod, 70% Otani is better than like probably 80% of the league.
So yeah, and now I just wonder, like going forward, I just wonder, how even if Otani does come up to bat, like you still got to respect him at the plate. Like you can't just throw him, meatballs down the middle and hope he doesn't connect on one. Like that's what I'm saying. Like you still got to put him in the lineup because the pitcher still has to pitch around him.
Yeah, especially if there's runners on base, there's nothing guaranteed.
Oh, well, one thing is guaranteed, and that's
Yeah.
usually that runner's eventually coming home to score.
Yeah. Anyways, I think that'll just about do it for this episode of Breaking News Bears. I once again want to thank my co-host Evan Davis, and I once again want to thank you guys, the listeners. Thank you for listening again to another episode of Breaking News Bears.